The galaxy was wide and full of light. Stars burned in every corner. Planets turned slowly in the dark. But there was one place that all aliens feared. One place where even the bravest warriors would never go. It was called the Deathworld. The Deathworld was not like other planets. Its air was heavy and full of poison. Storms moved across the land like angry beasts. Lightning crashed without warning. Deserts stretched like endless fire while mountains froze like cages of ice. In one day a traveler could burn. Drown and freeze, no alien could survive here. For centuries the Deathworld had been a graveyard. Ships that landed never returned. Scouts sent there vanished without a trace. Every alien map marked the planet with the same word, forbidden, and every species agreed it was better to orbit far away than to risk a step on its deadly ground. Aliens told stories of the Deathworld to scare their young. They said the winds cut through armor. They said beasts with claws bigger than ships hunted anything that moved. They said rivers boiled with acid and forests dripped with poison. And no one ever denied these tales, because every story ended with the same truth. Nobody lived long enough to tell the tale themselves. Yet one day silence broke. High above the Deathworld a small ship came out of hyperspace. It was not a warship, not a cargo vessel, not even a fleet, just a single craft with a single life form inside. The scanners of many alien races lit up with alarm. The watchers from distant space stations could not believe their eyes. Someone was heading straight for the cursed planet. The ship entered orbit, cutting through the storm clouds that wrapped the planet like a black shroud. Lightning danced around the hull. Flames burned as it entered the atmosphere. Any alien pilot would have turned back, but this one did not. The vessel steadied itself and landed on the surface with a heavy crash. The cameras of alien scouts focused close. The whole galaxy seemed to hold its breath. The hatch of the small ship opened. The wind howled, the toxic air hissed. And then a figure stepped out. It was not an armored beast, not a creature with scales, claws, or wings. It was not a machine or a monster. It was something far more fragile, far more impossible. It was a human. The human stood tall, the storm whipping against his suit, the ground shaking beneath his boots, and then he did something no alien expected. He smiled. The smile was small, simple, and calm, but to the watchers it was terrifying. Why would anyone smile on the Deathworld? Why would anyone look at endless danger and show no fear? The alien generals watching in silence felt their scales crawl, their claws tremble, their antennae twist in disbelief. The human walked forward slowly, the poisonous wind tearing at his clothes. The ground cracked and smoked where he stepped, but still he smiled. His eyes scanned the horizon as if he was not afraid of the deadly land, as if this world was not a nightmare but a challenge. "Impossible," whispered a Carthan commander on his bridge, his armored hands shaking. "No creature can live there." "Then why does he walk?" hissed a Zelkan observer. Its 4 eyes unblinking. Why does he not fall? The feed spread across the galaxy. Alien civilians huddled around screens. Soldiers stood frozen in their barracks. Merchants paused in their trade halls. All of them watched the single human who dared to do what no other had. The Deathworld was a place of silence, but now it carried the echo of footsteps. Footsteps of a species every alien had underestimated. Some aliens whispered that the human must be insane. Others feared he knew a secret. Some even thought he was cursed. But one truth grew in the minds of all who watched. This human was not like the others. This human carried something dangerous, something stronger than armor or weapons. He carried fearlessness above the Deathworld. Ships remained hidden in orbit, their crews shaking, unwilling to land, yet unable to turn away, because they knew what they were witnessing was not just survival. It was history. The Deathworld had killed every visitor before, but this time it faced a human, and the human smiled, and in that smile, the galaxy felt a new terror awaken. Across the stars, in hidden stations and silent warships, the moment spread like fire. Every race with a scanner or a listening post tuned in to the impossible sight. A human walking on the Deathworld, in the council chambers of the Veyrak. Long shadows moved under glowing lights. Their bodies were covered in sharp scales. Their voices hissed through thin mouths. These were creatures who had survived wars for centuries, yet tonight their tails trembled. They watched the human step over broken rocks. They saw storms crash around him. They heard the growl of distant beasts, and still the human smiled far away. The insectoid Zelkan gathered in their hive ship. Their antennae twitched in fear, their wings folded tight. They were creatures of precision, never moving without reason. Yet now they whispered in broken clicks. Why does he walk? Why does he not hide? No one survives here. Their queen, High above leaned close to the screen, her many eyes reflecting the human's calm face. On the frozen moons of Karth, warriors gathered around a single holo display. Their armor was thick, their claws sharper than steel, yet even they stayed silent. They had been raised to fight. They had conquered 10 systems, but none of them had dared to land on the Deathworld. One young soldier asked, "Commander, is it true? Is that a human?" And the commander only nodded, his eyes locked on the screen. The human did not run, he did not hide. He walked as if the Deathworld was a simple road. He bent down and touched the dirt, lifted it in his palm, let it fall. The toxic soil clung to his skin, but he brushed it away with ease. Then he laughed. The sound carried through the hidden microphones of alien probes. A laugh on the Deathworld. It was madness to the watchers. Yet in that madness was something worse. It was confidence. In a trade station on the rim of the galaxy, merchants and smugglers crowded around a single cracked monitor. They had heard of humans, fragile mammals from a blue world, but they had never seen one like this. Whispers grew in the smoky halls. Are they demons? Are they gods? Or are they simply unafraid of death? On the council world, the grand chamber of 100 species echoed with panic. Ambassadors shouted in fear. Some demanded the screen be shut down. Others demanded to know if humans were planning invasion. One elder with skin like glass tapped the floor and said in a voice that shook the chamber, "Listen well, if one human can survive the Deathworld, then no world is safe from them." Silence followed, but still the feed played and the human kept walking. He crossed rivers that boiled with acid. The fumes rose around him and the aliens gasped, thinking he would collapse, yet the human pulled a mask tighter and waded through, as if he had done it many times before. He climbed cliffs of sharp black stone while storms slashed at his back. Each step was slow but steady. Never once did he look afraid. The alien leaders leaned close. Studying every movement, their scientists took notes. Their generals whispered strategies, some even prayed, because in the calm smile of one human they saw the shadow of something greater. On the warship of the Thark, a species built like mountains with skin harder than iron. The captain growled low. "I do not like this," his second-in-command asked. "Why, Captain?" "It is only one human." But the captain turned his heavy head and replied, "Yes, and that is why I fear. Because if one human can do this, what can 1,000 do? What can 1,000,000 do?" The galaxy had long called Earth a simple planet, a place of oceans, forests, and storms. Nothing special compared to the vast empires of the stars. But now, with every step the human took, with every smile he gave, the aliens began to doubt. Perhaps Earth itself was another Deathworld. Perhaps humans were not survivors by chance, but by nature, and so fear turned into obsession. Ships stayed in orbit, scanning every movement, recording every laugh, every breath. Races who had never agreed on anything now shared the same thought. Humans were dangerous not because of their weapons, not because of their numbers, but because of their will. The human walked into a valley where bones of giant beasts lay scattered, claws bigger than ships, skulls as tall as towers. The watchers expected him to turn back, but instead he sat upon a broken rib and rested. He looked at the bones and smiled again, as if to say, "I am not afraid, not of this, not of anything." The alien screens went dark for a moment as storms cut the signal, and in that silence many leaders realized they were holding their breath. When the picture returned, the human was still there, walking, always walking, never falling, never stopping, and across the galaxy a truth began to grow. The Deathworld had been feared by all, but tonight it was not the planet that was terrifying. It was the human who smiled upon it. The Deathworld did not welcome strangers, it tested them, it broke them. It swallowed them whole, yet here was a human, walking as if the planet was only another path, as if the storms and the poison were nothing more than weather. But the Deathworld was alive, and it was cruel. It did not let any visitor pass without trial. The first trial came with the beasts. Creatures born from darkness, their eyes glowed in the storm. Their bodies were taller than towers, their teeth sharper than blades. The ground shook as one beast charged. Its roar carried across the barren plain. Aliens watching the feed leaned forward, claws tight, wings trembling. No one had ever survived a single strike from such a beast. They expected the human to run, to scream, to beg. But the human did none of these things. Instead, he stood still, calm, waiting. At the last moment, the human moved, quick and sharp, rolling aside as the beast's jaws slammed shut. Dust exploded around him. The human pulled a small tool from his belt, a simple spear made of metal and stone. Nothing compared to alien weapons, yet he held it with steady hands. The beast roared again and lunged, but the human did not panic. He aimed for the eye, one strike fast and fierce. The beast screamed, shaking the valley. Its body crashed against the rocks, and silence fell. Gasps echoed across the galaxy. Alien generals whispered in fear. Soldiers shook their heads. Even the insectoid queens froze in disbelief. A fragile human had brought down a monster that even war fleets avoided, and he had done it with nothing but a spear. The second trial came with the land. The Deathworld's ground split open. Rivers of molten fire burst upward. The soil cracked like broken glass. The human ran across the shaking earth. Leaping from rock to rock, flames chased him like a living wave. His boots melted, his skin burned. But he kept moving. Above him, lightning raged. Each strike enough to destroy a ship. Yet he moved between the flashes. His instincts sharper than any scanner. His body pushed beyond its limit, but still he smiled. "Impossible," whispered a Thark captain, his voice heavy with dread. "No one can escape both beast and storm." But the feed showed the truth. The human did. The third trial came with hunger. The Deathworld gave no food, no water, no mercy. Alien scouts had seen armies starve here. Soldiers too afraid to taste the plants, too afraid to drink the rivers, but the human knelt by a dark swamp, tasted the water with caution, then built a fire and boiled it. He plucked strange fruits and burned away their poison. He cooked the flesh of the beast he had killed. He ate, he drank, he survived. Aliens were silent because this was not luck. It was knowledge. The human was not guessing. He understood survival, as if his entire species had been born on a world just as cruel. The fourth trial came with night. The Deathworld did not rest. When the sun fell, the air froze to ice. Winds screamed through the canyons. Shadows moved in the dark. Eyes glowed from every corner. But the human built a shelter with his own hands, stones and bones stacked into walls, fire burning in the center. The howls of the beasts grew louder, but the human only sat beside the fire, eating calmly. His eyes sharp, his back straight across the galaxy. Fear turned into awe. The alien leaders could not look away. Some prayed to their gods, some cursed their fate, but all of them thought the same thought. If one human can survive here, then humans are not prey. They are predators. But the Deathworld was not done. At dawn, a storm of acid rain fell from the sky. Drops that melted stone. Rivers that burned everything they touched. Alien ships had seen these storms wipe entire forests in minutes. And now the human walked in the open, acid hissing against his armor, his skin bleeding where it touched, but still he walked. He tore cloth from his clothes and wrapped it tight. He covered his mouth, his eyes burned, but he did not stop. The alien generals watching shook their heads. "Why does he keep smiling?" one whispered. And no one had an answer. Trial after trial. The Deathworld unleashed its fury. Beasts, storms, hunger, cold, poison, fire. Yet the human endured. Every wound became a scar. Every danger became a lesson. He adapted, he survived. By the time the sun rose again, the aliens no longer watched in silence. They watched in fear, in respect, in disbelief. The human was no longer just surviving. He was thriving. He had faced what killed entire armies, and still he smiled. The Deathworld had always been undefeated, but now it had met its match. And that match was not a fleet, not a weapon, not a god. It was a single human, walking alone with a smile, and across the stars a whisper began, a whisper that grew into a roar. Humans are not weak. They are Deathworlders. The Deathworld had tried again and again to break the human. Storms, beasts, hunger, poison, and fire. But nothing worked. The human kept walking, bleeding, smiling, surviving. At first the galaxy had watched in horror. They had waited for the end. They had waited to see the fragile mammal crushed like all others before. But the end never came. The human endured, and something strange began to happen. Fear began to change. It began to twist into respect. On the frozen moons of Karth, the young soldiers who once laughed at humans now sat in silence, their claws gripping their weapons. Their commander spoke softly. "Remember this, strength is not only in armor. Strength can also be in spirit." And the young listened. For the first time they saw humans not as weak prey, but as warriors. In the hive ships of the Zelkan, the insectoid drones replayed the feed over and over. Clicking in disbelief, they had seen the human boil poison water. They had seen him eat the flesh of monsters. They had seen him build fire in storms. To them, this was more than survival. It was adaptation. Their queen finally spoke. "This species is dangerous, but perhaps they are also wise." And her hive bowed their heads. Even in the council chambers of the Veyrak, where voices once hissed with disgust, now there was silence. The elders leaned close to the glowing screen, their scales shifting nervously. They saw the human rest beneath the bones of ancient beasts, laughing at the darkness, and one elder whispered, "To laugh in the face of death, that is power." The human became a story, a living legend, carried by traders from station to station, in the smoke-filled halls of spaceports. Smugglers and wanderers told the tale. One human walks where no one can. One human smiles where no one dares. Some called him insane. Some called him cursed, but all agreed on one thing. Humans were no longer to be ignored. On the Grand Council world, where 100 species gathered, the debate grew fierce. One ambassador slammed the floor with his staff and shouted, "This is a threat. Humans must be contained." Another rose and hissed, "No, this is a gift. They are strong allies if they stand with us." Voices clashed. The chamber filled with anger, but under it all there was respect, because none could deny what they had seen with their own eyes. The human had done more than survive. He had changed the way the galaxy saw his kind. Above the Deathworld, fleets of hidden ships circled. Crews who once trembled in fear now stared in silence. Young recruits whispered to one another, "Do you think he will make it? Do you think he will outlast the planet itself?" And their commanders, who should have silenced such talk, gave no answer, for they too were wondering the same. The Deathworld was supposed to be undefeatable, yet this single human was proving otherwise. Down on the cursed ground, the trials never stopped. Beasts stalked in the shadows. Storms tore at the sky. Acid rain burned the rocks. Yet the human walked forward, step after step, scar after scar, with the same calm smile. And that smile began to haunt the galaxy, not with fear, but with a kind of respect they could not explain. Respect born from something pure and simple, the will to live. The Thark war captain, who had once growled in dread, now turned to his crew and said, "We were wrong. Humans are not prey. They are predators who choose to endure." His second-in-command asked softly, "Shall we fear them, Captain?" And the captain shook his heavy head. "No, we shall respect them, because to fear is to admit weakness. But to respect is to prepare." Stories spread faster than light. Children of alien worlds began to play games where they pretended to be humans on the Deathworld. Roaring at storms, throwing rocks at monsters, laughing in the dark, their parents tried to stop them, but deep down even the elders smiled, because even they felt the pull of the legend. The galaxy had feared humans before, but this was different. This was not fear of destruction. It was respect for survival, a respect that came unwillingly, born from watching one human face the impossible without breaking at night. When the human lit his fire and sat against the bones of fallen beasts, he was unaware of the countless eyes watching him, unaware of the whispers, unaware that every race was now rethinking everything they thought they knew. For the first time, alien leaders admitted a truth they had always denied. Humans were not weak. They were something else, something new, something dangerous, but also something worthy. The Deathworld had been undefeated for centuries, but now it carried the footsteps of one human, and those footsteps were echoing across the galaxy. Respect had taken root, and once it begins, it cannot be stopped. The Deathworld burned, storms raged, beasts hunted. Yet the human still walked, still smiled, still survived. And while he faced the trials of the planet, the galaxy itself faced a trial of its own. On the Council world, at the heart of the stars, a vast chamber of stone and metal stood tall. Here gathered the rulers of 100 species, the strongest and the proudest. They came to speak of trade, of borders, of war. But today there was only one subject, the human. The chamber was a circle of fire and light. Every species had a seat. Voices rose, voices clashed. The air shook with argument. "This is a danger," hissed the Veyrak elder, his scales shifting with unease. "If one human can walk the Deathworld, imagine what their armies can do. We must act before it is too late." "Nonsense," snapped the ambassador of the Zelkan, her wings buzzing in anger. "One human does not make an army. Perhaps he is simply stronger than the rest. We must study him, not destroy his people." The Thark captain, who had flown across the galaxy to speak, slammed his iron hand upon the stone. The sound echoed, "You are blind, all of you. I have led fleets into wars, I have crushed empires, but I have never seen a creature like this. A human does not survive by accident. He survives because he was born to endure. And if he was born to endure, then his kind is the greatest threat we have ever faced." The chamber erupted. Shouts and roars filled the air. Some called for war. Some called for peace. Others demanded silence in the corner. The soft-voiced elder of the Lumari, a species of light and glass, rose slowly, his body glowing faintly, his words calm. Listen, you all argue as if fear is the only path. But look again, is this not also a chance? A chance for alliance, a chance for strength. Humans may be dangerous, yes, but what if they stood with us, not against us? For a moment the chamber stilled. The idea spread like a spark in dry grass. Allies, not enemies. But fear returned quickly. The Veyrak elder spat. Allies, you say? Allies with a species that laughs in storms and drinks poison. Allies with death itself. No, humans are not partners. They are predators who have not yet noticed us. The debate dragged on for hours, each voice louder than the last. The galaxy was split. Fear against respect. Caution against curiosity. And all the while, far below on the Deathworld, the human built another fire, cooked the flesh of another beast and smiled into the night, unaware that his every move was turning empires against each other. The council called for silence. The High Speaker, a being older than most stars, raised his staff and the chamber obeyed. His voice was deep, slow, heavy. Enough. We will decide not with words but with action. The question is simple. Do we leave the human be, or do we send our fleets? Capture him, study him, or end him? Gasps echoed. The choice was heavy. The fate of a species debated in a single night. Votes were cast, claws struck stone, wings beat the air, voices cried out. The council divided. The numbers swayed, the chamber shook. At last the High Speaker raised his staff again. His voice thundered, the vote is decided. We shall send ships to the Deathworld. The human will not walk alone any longer. Across the galaxy the news spread. Fleets prepared, soldiers armed themselves. Scientists sharpened their tools. Some spoke of capturing, some spoke of killing. Others whispered of secret pacts, but all agreed on one thing. The human could not be ignored. Yet even as the decision was made, unease lingered. Because every race knew the truth. They feared the Deathworld. But they feared the human more above the cursed planet. Ships in secret orbit received their orders, prepare to land, prepare to confront, prepare to face the one who smiled at storms. And down below the human sat beside the fire, his scars lit by the flames, his eyes calm, his lips curled into that same fearless smile. The Deathworld had tested him and he had survived. Now the galaxy itself would test him. The alien council had chosen to act, but none of them were ready for the answer the human would give. The night was long on the Deathworld. Storms clawed at the sky. Beasts roared in the distance. Yet the human slept beside a small fire, calm, steady, as if he belonged there. But above him the sky was not empty. Alien ships moved silently through the clouds, their lights dim, their engines hushed. Fleets had come from across the galaxy, sent by the council, sent to confront the one who had shaken their fear. The first ship landed at dawn, its hull black as iron, claws of metal digging into the soil. Ramps opened and soldiers poured out, armored, armed, prepared. Their claws shook, but they marched forward. Behind them more ships descended. The ground trembled with their weight. The valley filled with shadows. The human woke, stretched, and rose slowly, his eyes clear, his face calm. He saw the armies standing before him, hundreds of weapons pointed at his chest, alien generals shouting orders, creatures of all shapes and sizes, scales, wings, shells, claws, fangs. Yet he did not run, he did not hide. He only smiled. The silence was heavy. No beast roared, no storm thundered. Even the Deathworld seemed to pause, waiting. "Human!" hissed a Veyrak commander, his voice carried through speakers. "You stand where no one should, you live where no one can. By order of the council you will come with us. You will be studied. You will be contained." The human tilted his head, his smile wider, and then he spoke. His voice steady, clear, almost amused. "Studied, contained. Is that what you think this is about?" The Zelkin queen, watching through a towering machine, clicked her mandibles. "You should not even be alive. Yet you walk, yet you laugh. Tell us, how do you survive here? What is your secret?" The human's eyes moved across the crowd of soldiers, past their weapons, past their trembling hands, and then he laughed. Not a nervous laugh, but a strong one, full of life. "This place, this Deathworld, you think it is special? You think it is worse than anything else? But you do not understand," he paused, his smile sharper. "Earth is worse," the words fell like fire. The aliens froze, their minds racing. Earth, their charts had marked it as simple. A blue world of oceans and forests, fragile life, nothing dangerous, nothing special. But now the human said otherwise. "Worse," whispered the Thark captain, his iron hand clenching. He dares say Earth is worse, yes, the human said, stepping closer, ignoring the weapons, ignoring the fear. On Earth we have storms that last for months, oceans that swallow ships, beasts that hunt in packs, poison that hides in the smallest bite. We fight hunger, disease, cold, fire, and each other, and we do not run, we endure, we adapt, we survive. This death world is nothing new to me, it is only another test. The silence grew deeper. Soldiers shifted uneasily. Some lowered their weapons without realizing, because in his voice there was no pride, no arrogance, only truth. The Varrock commander hissed, "You lie, no world can be worse than this." But his eyes betrayed doubt. The human shrugged. "Believe what you want. But ask yourself this, if I can live here alone, with nothing but my hands, then what do you think 1,000,000 of us could do? What do you think 1,000,000,000 of us could do?" The words spread like thunder. Alien soldiers looked at one another, fear rising again, but this fear was different now. It was not fear of the death world. It was fear of humanity. The Thark captain stepped forward, his voice low. "Why smile then? Why laugh when storms try to kill you? Why laugh when monsters tear at your flesh?" The human smile softened but did not fade. "Because fear is a chain and chains break. Because laughter is freedom. Because smiling tells the world it cannot own me. Not this world, not any world." The aliens did not speak. For in that moment they understood. It was not just the human body that survived. It was the human spirit, and spirit cannot be contained. The council fleets had come to capture him, to cage him. But standing before them was something uncageable, something that did not bow, something that did not break. Above them, the storms of the death world cracked open. Lightning flashed across the sky. Thunder roared like a beast. The human raised his head, his smile glowing in the stormlight. "You came to study me," he said, his voice strong against the thunder. "But you have already learned enough. You have learned why you fear, and why you should respect." The fleets remained still, weapons shaking, commanders silent. The council's decision had brought them here, but no one dared step forward. No one dared touch him, because in the eyes of every soldier, every leader, every watcher across the galaxy, the truth had become clear. The death world had not broken the human. The human had broken the death world, and now he was breaking the galaxy's certainty, one smile at a time. The death world had tested him. The storms, the beasts, the poison, the hunger, the fire, the cold. Yet the human survived. He smiled, he laughed, he endured, and the galaxy had watched in silence. First with fear, then with respect, and finally with awe. Now, standing before fleets of alien armies, he had spoken the words that shook every heart. Earth was worse. At first many had doubted. But doubt turned to questions, and questions turned to dread. What if it was true? What if Earth, the quiet blue planet they had marked as harmless, was in fact a death world itself? The alien commanders whispered among themselves, their voices filled with unease. The Zelkin queen clicked nervously. "If Earth is worse, then all humans are born from trial. All humans are forged in suffering. What does that mean for the galaxy?" The Thark captain clenched his iron hand, his voice a growl. "It means we were blind. It means we feared the wrong thing. We feared the death world. But the true danger is those who call such a place home." The human watched them calmly, his eyes sharp but kind, his scars glowing faint in the firelight. He was not a conqueror, not a monster, not a god. He was only a man. But in that truth was something more terrifying than any weapon. He spoke again, his words steady. "You think of us as fragile, soft, weak. But our strength is not in claws or scales or shells. Our strength is in rising when we fall, in enduring when the world breaks us, in adapting to what others call impossible. We are not the strongest, not the fastest, not the biggest, but we do not stop. And that is why we survive." The silence grew heavy. Every alien soldier felt it, every commander heard it, every world watching through hidden screens understood. The death world had been their greatest fear. Yet this human treated it as nothing more than another challenge, another obstacle, another chance to smile. He pointed to the storm-filled horizon, to the mountains split by lightning, to the rivers of poison and the forests of shadow. "This place is not my enemy, it is my teacher. And Earth taught us the same way, with storms, with beasts. With hunger and pain we learned to endure, and in enduring we became what we are." The council fleets shifted nervously. Their orders were to capture him, to contain him, but no one moved. No soldier stepped forward, because none of them could imagine trying to bind someone who looked at death and laughed. Among the watching crowds across the galaxy, whispers spread like fire. Children whispered of humans as heroes. Merchants whispered of humans as allies. Soldiers whispered of humans as rivals. Leaders whispered of humans as the greatest unknown. The Veyrak elder, who had argued for destruction, lowered his head in silence. The words he had prepared burned away in his throat, because he saw now what no fear could erase: respect. Even the Lumari elder of light and glass spoke softly, his voice carrying across the chamber of the council. Perhaps this is not the end of our fear, but the beginning of our understanding. Perhaps humans are not to be chained, but to be heard. The humans standing in the storm did not know of these debates, did not know that empires trembled at his smile. He only looked at the ships above, the soldiers before him, the storms around him, and he laughed once more. It was not a cruel laugh, not a laugh of victory, but a laugh of freedom, a laugh that said, "You cannot break me." The alien soldiers lowered their weapons, not by command but by instinct. They saw in him something they could not fight, not strength of body, but strength of spirit, and spirit was stronger than any weapon. The Deathworld roared again. Lightning split the sky. Thunder shook the ground. But the humans stood tall, unbroken, undefeated, smiling into the storm, and in that moment, the galaxy understood the truth. Humans were not survivors by chance, they were survivors by nature. They did not fear Deathworlds, they were born from one. The council fleets turned slowly, their engines lighting the sky. Not a single weapon fired, not a single chain thrown. They left in silence, because they knew that to touch him was to invite something they were not ready for. The human watched them go, then turned back to his fire. His smile soft, his eyes calm, he whispered to himself, "So, what's next?" The galaxy heard those words, carried by unseen ears, repeated across stations and planets, and the meaning was clear. This was not the end. It was only the beginning. The Deathworld had failed to kill him. The Council had failed to contain him. And now the galaxy itself would have to face the truth. Every alien trembled before the Deathworld, but the human smiled. And in that smile the galaxy saw its future.